We welcome in our man. The draft. Let's try that again in 3, 2, and
oh, it's live, pal.
Okay. We welcome in the draft guru of the Kings Herald, our man Bryant West. Bryant, thrilled to have you. It's Bryant West season.
It
here
is
on D'Lo and KC, and I've been able to see you kind of jump in and out of the chat during the first hour of this show and some of the conversation about the Sacramento Kings moving up to the 4 pick and the players that are available for the Kings there, and really anxious to get your thoughts. Is there a particular player in terms of Keegan Murray, Shaedon Sharpe, Jaden Ivey that you're high on, and are we missing one? Are there other names that we need to be throwing out here at 4?
I definitely think all 3 of those guys deserve consideration at this point. Assuming the draft goes as expected for the first 3 picks, which would be some order of Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith Jr., and Paulo Banchero, Jaden Ivey's my pick right now. His offensive skill set, his athleticism, his quickness, that whole combo is exceptional for a combo guard. It was on display all season at Purdue. He showed big improvements in his shooting over the whole season. Was pretty efficient when he got to the rim. Showed a ton of off-ball skill that make me excited to see him next to an extra primary playmaker. I'm just more confident in his star upside than I am for anyone else left realistically at 4. And yeah, there are some skills and weaknesses that overlap with De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell that make this less than a comfortable fit. But, I don't think we'd all care that much when we get to see the 3 of them be the most athletic, fun backcourt in the league next year. So he'd be my pick right now, but ask me again in a month.
We will. Yeah. We absolutely will.
We had the question with Keegan Murray, and we were like, he gets drafted by the Kings at 4. He's immediately their starting power forward. Do you feel that way about Jaden Ivey? And if he is, what does that mean for everybody else at that position? The Davions, the Dantes, Terrence Davis. Like, is he come in day 1 and he's your starting shooting guard?
I don't necessarily think day 1 he comes in and is the guaranteed starter, but whichever one of Davion or Jaden Ivey started, like the other one's going to be a fantastic off the bench guard for the whole of their career, however that shakes out. When it comes to immediate starter day 1, the only person in this conversation that I'm pretty confident will start day 1 is Keegan Murray. So I've been agreeing with a lot of what you guys have been saying so far on the show about him. If the Kings want to leave this draft with a guaranteed day 1 starter, that's their goal for this playoff push, then he really is their pick. But, I've been agreeing with your guys' ceiling versus floor opinion. And when you're at pick number 4, I want to swing for the fences too, which is why I have a preference for Jaden Ivey at this spot.
You think Jaden Ivey is swing for the fences over Shaedon Sharpe?
Not necessarily. Like, Shaedon Sharpe is definitely more of a swing for the fences. It's really easy to see why Kenny and so many Kings fans are really excited about Shaedon Sharpe. Like, he has so many things that you just can't teach. That quick pull-up, his elite athleticism and his coordination, strong size for the wing position. He has the framework to just be an incredible player in the NBA. And I agree with Kenny that his ceiling is exceptionally high. To be fair to a point that Kenny's been making the last couple of days, good players come from everywhere. He didn't need to have played a single minute of college basketball to be a strong pick in this class. The issue that I have is more on our end of this. It's more limiting to us on the outside of the NBA offices just to only see that high school film. Because, he's going to show skills that don't matter who he's playing. But what I love about scouting college players is getting to see that growth over 30-ish games. Mm-hmm. I really would have liked to see how Sharpe's three-point shot looked over a full year. I wanted to see how consistent his defense approach and awareness was. I wanted to see how he reacts to the bright lights of the big games. And, he's not going to be a bust because we didn't get to see those things. It's just we're left with more of an incomplete picture than we are for the other players. Mm-hmm. And so I just really hope that Monty McNair and his team have been doing all the background research on Sharp for months now, because, checking the stuff that we can't see. Kentucky let scouts into multiple practices this year. I'm really hoping the Kings got somebody in there. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like, if Monty McNair drafts Shaedon Sharp, I'm going to applaud it. That's an upside swing that just takes major confidence, especially given that reported playoff mandate. I always want the Kings to aim for stars. So I'd love to see them take him. I'm just going to be glad it's not my job on the line.
With Jaden Ivey, I want to talk about him for just a second. And you talk about that's the guy that you would go with. What has you sold on Jaden, and what are some of the concerns you would have if he was taken by the Kings at 4?
I think just his total package on offense, top end speed, agility, explosiveness, change of pace, 6'9" wingspan kind of makes up for the fact, like you've been saying, he's a little shorter than you'd like for that second guard next to De'Aaron Fox. But like, when he got downhill, there were nobody in college basketball that could keep him out of the paint. Made his shots at a 65.5% clip at the rim. His craft, once he gets into the paint, is just beautiful. And like, from day one in the NBA, I fully believe that is a go-to shot that he's going to be able to get to. That said, like, I also believe in his shooting. He took a real big step forward as a deep shooter this year, although he definitely needs to get more consistent at it. I would say that the rest of his game is more of a work in progress. Like, his defense is incredibly inconsistent. And for, one of the worst defensive teams in the last 5 years, that's a big concern. He's definitely more of a combo guard. I don't think that he should ever be counted on as like a primary point guard. And he's very much all about either getting to the rim or taking a deep shot. He just has no in-between game, no floater, no runner, no nothing. And as we see with De'Aaron Fox, like, you really have to threaten somewhere between that three-point line and the basket, or dudes are just going to know what to expect from you. So I'm not going to pretend like Jaden Ivey is this guaranteed super safe potential player. He definitely has some concerns, and a lot of those concerns overlap with stuff that the Kings already have. But to me, unless you're extremely confident with Shaedon Sharp, and I know you are, Kenny, he to me seems like the best bet for a star player, whether he's on the Kings in a couple of years or whether you're looking to trade him in a year or two because he is what everybody thinks he is. So
what is it that – sorry, Casey, go ahead.
Real quick, I just wanted to comment on what Brian said. I'm pretty confident in Shaedon Sharp, but more important than that, I just think his potential is a risk worth taking. That's kind of what it comes down to. Like, what he could be, it's worth taking the gamble. You know what I'm saying? And it's like when Michael Porter Jr. was there, he started having all these injury concerns, and and up until maybe the last day or two, I was just like, I love the skill set. I love what he can be, but I don't know if that's a risk worth taking. And obviously there's no injury concerns that we know of with Shaedon right now, but you just looking at his skill set and everything else like that, then there's a bunch of questions. There's a bunch of potential downfalls. It may not work, but I just look at what's going on and I'm like, I gotta keep saying worst case scenario, because I always like to think these things worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, he's not who I think he was. I can live with that. I can live with that. That was a risk worth taking. And that's kind of where it comes from with Shaedon.
I think that's really fair. And I always want to go for the upside players. Sacramento Kings aren't going to break out of this and be a perennial playoff team by avoiding star upside and going for safe picks every time. It's really easy for me to say that, and it's pretty easy for you to say that when it's not our hot seat, when we're not sitting there, Monty McNair having to listen to Vivek say, hey, why didn't they make the playoffs this year? So, there's a difference between what I'm hoping they do and what I'm realistically expecting this team to do. given everything that we've seen from them in the last year.
Yeah.
The playoff mandate is sneaky one of my favorite things, by the way. Like, I'm just envisioning this scenario. Like, the memo goes out, I'm demanding you make the playoffs next year. You got it, boss. Like,
Yeah.
cool, got it. Like, we keep talking, Bryant, about Shaedon Sharpe, particularly, Kenny in introducing his thoughts on Shaedon Sharpe to us a couple of weeks ago, where we thought, any chance for the Kings to land him, they would probably have to move up. Now we realize they're in a prime position unless someone else gets tantalized in the top 3 to take Shaedon Sharpe on his star potential. But what exactly is it about him that's got people like Kenny? Even you're speaking pretty highly of him. What is it about him that's got everybody so boom or bust?
I honestly think that a lot of that narrative just comes from the people like us, where our ability to watch him is just all about the high school tape, where we can see the skill set that translates to the next level. But there's just so much that, and this goes all the way back to the early 2000s and the 90s when high school guys came out. Now we have a lot more resources to look at these players now than they did, but college and the G League now is a stepping stone that showcases things that you just can't see in high school. Playing against grown men who have close to your athleticism or just outweigh you. The grind of so many games and so many nights, and the big time cameras are on you. That's just, even for these big time high school players, they are on ESPN. But like, Shaedon Sharpe didn't participate in March Madness. He didn't get tested like that. So when people say boom or bust, to me, I'm not going to be able to look at his skill set and say, well, I think this is how he'd fail, or this is what's going to make him kind of a scary pick at the next level. To me, it's the attributes that you can't pin on him right now. You can't tell me that he's going to shoot X% from 3 over a whole season. I have no idea what kind of defender he is, because all I've seen is him defend mostly smaller guys at high school. So I think the people who've been doing their homework on Shaedon Sharpe for years are a lot more educated than 90% of the people who are sharing their opinions about Shaedon Sharpe on Twitter right now. And my only hope is that the Sacramento Kings, any team that's this high in the draft that's really considering him, has been doing that research, because they'll have a much greater understanding of why he would be a risk or what the reward is. So,
you mentioned Casey, you mentioned Jaden Ivey improving from the 3-point range. It was almost like 10 percentage points. I think he went from 25% to 35%. You talked about his consistently still needed there, but you also said something that I'm sure a lot of Kings fans thought, because we were talking about Jaden's position and him essentially being a smaller 2. And you start, if anything, you got to look at him as a combo guard versus, a primary point guard. And I think, I'll speak for me, I won't speak for anybody. We're hearing guard. Oh, we're doing that again. Like De'Aaron Fox, the guard, right? Tyrese Halliburton, the guard that we traded. Davion Mitchell, the guard we just drafted. So there's Keegan Murray there, and you noted this earlier beautifully, and we should probably dive into this more, but he is solidly a starter when he enters when he walks onto the team because of a position of need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jaden probably is. You probably have to figure out what you're going to do with Dante and Terrence Davis as well, because I don't imagine both of them are coming back if you're drafting Jaden Ivey. But I think there's a collective like, oh, best player available, it's another guard.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, we're just drafting a team of guards here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is the complication. Like, no Kings fan's going to complain that they jumped up in the lottery, but this is the complication of ending up at pick number 4, as opposed to like pick number 2 or 3, where we could have been talking about, one of those more power forwards who really does fit this team. The complicating factor here is, if you believe, like I do, that Jaden Ivey's he's a tier of talent higher than, Keegan Murray. And, is there a logical argument for this Kings team has drafted all these guards. What they really need is some consistent play at the forward spot. Yeah, Keegan Murray is going to do that from day one. But there's also Kings don't break out of this playoff slump and becoming actual meaningful team by continuing to be safe, by continuing to take the guys who may not have anywhere near as high a ceiling, but they fit this team better. And you know me, last year I was arguing for all these wings and forwards because that's what I really wanted the Kings to build up on. But that was because I didn't see anyone, including Davion Mitchell, being heads and tails above any of the wings and forwards in that class. To me, Jaden Ivey is a significantly better prospect than Keegan Murray. And that's what breaks the tie for me.
Okay.
We talk about these three guys, and I do believe it comes down to these three guys for the pick. Do you think that there's much of a chance that they even trade this pick? I know a lot of people are really on that, like, hey, trade the pick, whatever the case may be. I don't see that yet. I see them making the pick. And like I said, unless the price is something that you're getting an all-star back in return, I'm just making the pick. That's how I'm going about it. I'm just making the pick. Unless it's a legit all-star, that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't want to see the Kings trade this for just a starter. Like, the moment this pick jumped up, you have to either pick somebody that you truly believe is a long-time franchise, changing player, or you got to go out and get somebody who really alters the course of this squad. Now, if you're telling me, hey, Detroit is going to offer up Grant and 5 or Sadiq Bey and 5, that's my preference. Yeah, I'm going to
Bagley, and you got a done deal. Oh, no.
Those are the kind of things I want. But, Collins, you were talking about that earlier. That's like the very least I'm going to want right now. I don't want to see Monty McNair just trade this pick to just add another starter. Main thing here, I don't want to see him trade it until the moment the Kings are on the clock, because there is a chance that Jaden Ivey or Shaedon Sharpe jumps into those top 3. And then suddenly we're talking, Chet Holmgren's there. Jabari Smith Jr. is there. Paulo Banchero is right there. And to me, all 3 of those guys would absolutely, I'd run to the podium to grab any one of those if I'm the Sacramento Kings.
Really? Okay. All right. You've said so much, so much that is sticking out right now. And you're absolutely one of my favorites when it comes to going to draft stuff. Explain Chet Holmgren to me like I'm 5.
Okay. I don't want to undersell that big question mark because, everybody's going to look at that dude. He's as skinny as I was at his age. He's going to get knocked out by guards at this level. I'm not going to undersell that until, dudes at every position are going to go at him again and again until he proves he can do something about it. But to an extent, that's also a weakness that any smart team can immediately begin to mitigate. And everything else in his game just screams that he's a dude you just cannot underrate. He is as physical as you could want from a big man, despite the fact that he's less than 200 pounds. His rim protection is fantastic. And honestly, the combination between him and Sabonis, that's a great pairing.
At the same time?
At the same time. I think Chet Holmgren's got to be a power forward in the league. I do not want to see him have to go up against Joel Embiid or Rudy Gobert or Jokic every night. I want to see him be more on the perimeter big man because I think that's where his strength is, and coming in on the weak side to protect the rim. To me, he is a top 2 player in this class. I definitely think he is more risky than Jabari Smith Jr. or Paulo Banchero, but yeah, if he's there for Sacramento, I'm happy, I'm celebrating, and that's weird for me because I'm not a fan of Gonzaga.
Right. Go Gales. So and I'm kind of with Damian on this one. Like, I think he's going to be a good ball player. But like I said, I guess my mind is somewhere else, and maybe I need to bring it back. I'm talking franchise altering. I'm talking franchise altering. You got, like, do you ever see Chet being a guy that puts up 20 and 10?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I will say I don't look at him and think, boy, he's going to be the engine of an offense, or he's going to be the absolute leading scorer of a team that competes. But
do you, real quick, not to cut you out, do you see anybody like that in this top 7?
Yeah, I do. Paulo Banchero, to me, could lead a team in scoring, could be the engine of an offense. And the reason I'd have him below the other two is that he shares a lot of the redundancies that with Sabonis. So, but to me, like, both Jabari Smith Jr. and Chet Holmgren are very good, different fits next to what the Kings already have.
Bryant, this is great stuff, man. You got me
For real.
Significantly better prospect than Keegan Murray. I wrote that in big bold letters. I'm gonna keep that one around for a while. Well, we said it. It's Bryant West season here on D-Lo and KC. I'm sure we'll be talking again. I'm going to be following all your writings and all your podcast appearances. The second you change your mind on somebody, you're going to have to come back on and explain it. Just real quick on the way out, Jalen Durant, AJ Griffin, nothing to think about.
AJ Griffin's one of my sleepers in this draft class. Like,
okay,
you can't ask for a better one of the most efficient jump shooting seasons any freshman in recent history. And I don't have to sell you guys on the value of an elite shooter in Sacramento. But it's really easy watching his tape. He's pretty stiff. And a lot of what was happening at Duke was kind of hampered by that, but also that he was pretty much the only consistent deep shooter that they had. But going back just 2 years ago, he was an incredibly explosive, athletic dude. And to me, like, he missed 2 years due to injuries and COVID. And then he came to Duke and he gained like 30 pounds of muscle. I think a smart team grabs Griffin early, gets him working with their athletic trainers. He may have the skill set, the shooting ability, physical tools. He may be the surprise star hidden in plain sight. So I don't see the Kings going for him, but if they did, to me, I'd be excited for him in a lot of the same reasons that I would be for Sharp, because if the Kings are willing to make that gamble, boy, they must really believe in this talent. They must feel like I do, that he's just a smart team away, real good development from being a two-way star.
Bryant West talks, man. We listen. I think AJ Griffin's got to be our next deep dive, KC. Bryant, great stuff, man. We appreciate you as always, my friend. Look forward to talking again soon.
Appreciate coming on the best radio show in Sac.
Yes, sir.
My man. Appreciate you.
Agreeing with me. That's how you're going to get somewhere.
I love it.
You hear him. Agree with Kenny. That's Bryant West.